Welcome back into this section on software setup. I like to refer to it as establishing our little programmer's sandbox. We are going to utilize 4 free pieces of software in this course. Oracle 11G. We are choosing 11G simply because 12's out now, but I'm going to use 11G because 12's still a little buggy. As part of that, we'll also download the SQL Plus command line tool. SQL Developer tool is Oracle's free GUI-based scripting tool. And finally, MySQL Workbench, which we'll use for ER diagramming. So we're going to utilize this suite of software throughout this course because principally it's free. If you are going to do database design and database programming as a career going forward, I will suggest a couple of alternatives throughout the course. In particular, for ER diagramming, I would suggest Irwin. It's sort of the industry standard. That's ER, and then Win, as in Windows, and then Toad as your GUI interface to Oracle. It's a much more powerful tool than SQL Developer, but again, both those tools cost money, so we're going to stick with the freebies. All right, let's begin our download process, and we'll see you on the next lecture.
Okay, first we're going to install the Express edition of Oracle's RDBMS. To get started, we simply do a Google search on Oracle Express Edition download. Oracle is, of course, all over SEO, so there they are right at the top of our list. Once you get to their page, the first thing they're going to want you to do is agree to their usage license. Yeah, whatever, no problem. Next, go ahead and select the version appropriate to your operating system and start the download process. Personally, I would suggest downloading the entire zip first, and then we'll work with it locally. This guy's pretty big to be run over the internet. Oh yeah, before Oracle will actually start the download, they want you to sign into their site so they have all your demographic information. You know, mother's maiden name, grandfather's occupation, length of your third left toe, all that regular stuff so they can spam you forever. I already have an account, so I will simply log in with it. You may need to create an account. Either way, once you get it logged in, this download will start. By the way, no, I do not give out my personal email address. You want to reach me, you can always do so through Udemy or via my website at www.digitalmiddleage.com. Sorry, but I get some privacy too once in a while. Now we jump forward in time and check out what Oracle's actually downloaded for us. All right, it's a simple zip file, so let's go ahead and extract that guy. Once the extraction's done, you'll see a folder named Disk 1. Funny, huh? Kind of dates the install routine, doesn't it? Anyway, go ahead and open that folder and you'll see a setup application. That's our guy. Go ahead and launch him. Next, Oracle matriculates through a bunch of extractions and decompressions and finally lands you on their install shield. Again, we start with the obligatory license agreement. What, one dance with the lawyers wasn't enough? Anyway, a simple click through and we're finally ready to start. Next prompt is important. It's asking you for a password for the sys and system user accounts. These two accounts own all the system metadata. You know, data about data. You'll need to log on as one of these two accounts, typically system, when you create your first new schema and grant privileges. Go ahead and create a password for these guys, but be sure to store it somewhere both accessible and secure. At this point, the rest of the install is really straightforward. You simply sit there and watch the installer copy files and start services. No big deal at all. Oh yeah, one last thing. Depending on the install routine, it may or may not ask you how large a database you want to create for your first instance. Go ahead and select small. We'll learn later how to adjust that configuration. All right, eventually that routine's going to finish and Oracle XE will be running on your box, at least in theory. But you say, hey, Rick, how do I know it's running and how do I control its execution? Fair enough. Good questions. Both these guys run as services, not surprisingly. So to check them out, we go to the control panel, administrative, and then services. Scroll down to the Oracle section, and there's our first one. The RDBMS engine is actually identified by the edition's name, in our case, Oracle XE for Express Edition. By the way, if you're not a Windows user, Linux, for example, you're going to have to be kind of on your own on these. I've been strictly Windows for about the last 15 years since I left VMS, and I really can't help you, sorry. Anyway, the second service is a little bit lower here, and it's the listener. The listener service is responsible for establishing connections with third-party software. SQL developer, for example, and all the programs you guys are going to write. Yeah, those will all connect up through the listener. As you can see, by default, both services are set to automatically start on boot of your system. You might want to change that. It's entirely up to you, but the listener in particular is a pretty busy guy because he's basically running continuously listening for requests. So you may want to manage both those services yourself. Up to you. All right, next let's actually log into Oracle and play the always popular Hello World game. We're going to give it a try with SQL Star Plus, also known more commonly as SQL Plus, Oracle's command line interpreter. This guy's not a real sophisticated tool, but it's certainly enough to get us a hello world. SQL Plus is downloaded automatically with the RDBMS engine, so you should already have it on your box. Here is a look at my shortcut pointer to it. Looks like C, Oracle XE, App, Oracle, Product, Version, Server, and Bin. That's where you'll find the executable. Not surprisingly, that's in a bin. Let's see if we can find that guy with File Explorer. Yeah, okay, C, Oracle XE, App, Oracle, Product, Version, and Bin. And there's our guy, SQL Plus. Just so you know, the standard method for writing that name out is with an asterisk between the SQL and the plus, but of course you can't do that in Windows file name. All right, so now we have a launch shortcut. Let's give it a try and see if we can play the Hello World game. I begin by firing up the SQL Plus application and providing my case-sensitive username and password. Yes, they're case sensitive. At this point, we'll use our system username because we know that password for this guy. I'm not going to get into a discussion yet on the syntax at this point, but clearly we're able to play successfully the hello game with no problem. Must be connected to Oracle. Hooray! Okay, the SQL developer install is even easier. Again, we start with a simple Google search to find Oracle's download environment for the free version of Developer. Begin by agreeing to the license agreement and then select the version appropriate to ROS. You know, I'd go ahead and download the most recent version of the JDK, the Java Development Kit. Probably on your box already, but doesn't hurt anything. Not surprisingly, Oracle is again going to want to have you sign in. No problem, we'll play the game. Again, we download to a known location and complete a quick extract of the zip file. Now here's where this one's a little different. There's really no install at this point. The whole application was extracted into the directory, including the DLLs, executables, icons, the whole deal. Easy enough then. We just copy that whole directory into our program files folder and we're done, other than setting up another shortcut to the developer application. Anyway, let's launch this guy and create a connection to the database. When you launch Developer, Oracle brings you to this SQL Developer homepage. Lots of fun tutorials and demos, but also where you can create a connection to an underlying RDBMS. Let's create a connection for our system user. We start over here in the left-hand corner by clicking this Add Connection icon. We give our connection a name so we can use it again going forward. Then we supply, and don't forget, our case-sensitive username and password. We're then faced with a bunch of options. For our discussion here, let's just know that Oracle's running on your local server, and as such, that host name is localhost, and the listener is running on port 1521. That's just standard operating procedures for a local host. XE is the default system identifier, or SID, for any Oracle Express Edition database. So we should be ready to run a test. Cool. Looks like it working just fine because we get our nice menu tree of objects over here on the left. And if we so chose, we could execute the same hello world query over here in the work area. I'll spare you that nonsense and we'll simply move on to my SQL workbench. Okay, and finally we're ready to install our last piece of software, that being MySQL Workbench. If you'll recall from just a moment ago, we're going to install the MySQL Workbench for its ability to generate ER diagrams. Okay, and as such, don't bother in downloading or installing the RDBMS for MySQL, just the Workbench product. All right, we begin the same way as we have for each of the other products, with a simple Google search, and since MySQL's an Oracle baby, again, it pops right up at the top. Jump to their page and pick the version appropriate to our operating system. Hit the good old download button. Wow, what a shocker. Oracle wants us to sign into their system again before the download, no problem. But for some reason, they also want to ask us a bunch of lame questions about how we're going to use the product. Hey, how about we're going to use it to draw ER diagrams, one of its design purposes. Anyway, finally, prove you're not a robot and download begins. By the way, it took me 3 times to get past that stupid robot prompt. This time I did run the install routine off as the remote server. Okay, next comes a very standard install routine. Just accept all the faults and you will be up and running in 5 minutes. By the way, after what seems like a really long time, SQL Workbench will finally launch. Don't worry about connecting this guy to a DB because you can't. We're just going to use it for ER diagramming. Finally, should you want a shortcut to this guy, and you probably do, the path is C, Program Files, MySQL, MySQL Workbench version, MySQL Workbench executable. Again, you Linux guys are probably going to have to track that down on your own, but that should be no problem for you.
All right, that concludes our software install discussion. In our next lecture, we're actually going to start the meat of the course. We'll start a section on relational theory, which will include lectures on relational terminology, database normalization, the actual design of tables, and then database documentation via ER diagram, entity relationship diagramming tools. Okay, we'll see you in the next lecture. In the interim, you go out there and you have some fun, but learn something new every day.